coronavirus now a global emergency? Screening measures in place at Jackson's International. And Prime Minister urges public servants to be honest.
This is the National EMTV News with Helen Sayer.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for Friday's news. The World Health Organization has declared the coronavirus outbreak a global emergency. In the announcement today, Dr. Luo Depeng said the global emergency declaration would begin measures for the National Department of Health to heighten its quarantine process. Meanwhile, the temporary suspension for online visa and visa on arrival has been lifted based on recommendations by the World Health Organization.
The World Health Organization announcing the global emergency to allow high-risk countries to prepare for an outbreak.
This declaration is not because China cannot manage the outbreak. In fact, the measure China have taken is good, not only for the country in China, but also for the rest of the world. The declaration is a reminder. The country who has a weak capacity to prepare the possible import of cases, even further community transmission in that country. It's a big reminder. All the country we should prepare.
The declaration will now allow countries to have a unified approach to contain the virus. Today, 213 people have died in China and over 9,000 people affected worldwide.
WHO to give a unified advice for each member state of the WHO to take a uniform action. They will allow WHO, for instance, deploy staff to the country who have an emergency situation very quickly.
Meanwhile, the National Department of Health will be making a submission to NEC for funding to increase quarantine measures at Jackson's International Airport and seaports.
Is that it's basically a step up for us and testing our settings and enabling that they are all on track and we fine-tune it and make it better as we go along. And so that's the way what it means in terms of this emergency call. So the call is for all countries and PNG is basically stepping up.
So far, 4,000 passengers have been screened at surrounding countries like Singapore, Manila and Malaysia confirmed cases, while Australia now has 9 cases.
Specific airports in terms of the visas, in terms of medical certificates, so that they can be screened and allowed to come through that process. And also, yesterday in that conference, we alluded to the point that each one of those airlines where the passengers are coming from, they are also required to fill in the forms so that we can be able to clearly articulate who is a suspect or whom we should follow through and all of that. And that process is already there. Those processes are already there and they're effective already.
But one thing has changed, and that's the temporary suspension on the online visa and visa on arrival. It has been lifted as WHO recommended countries not to put in a travel ban as it may restrict efforts to contain an outbreak.
So they suggested that the evidence has shown the restriction of movement of people and the goods during the public health emergency may be inefficient and may divert resources from intervention. Further, the restriction may interrupt the need to aid and technical support and may disrupt the business and may have a negative effect to the economy, the country affected by the emergency.
The public have been advised to call the hotline number if they have symptoms of cold and flu and have been to China in the last 14 days. Adelaide Sirkskari, National EMTV News.
The Acting Secretary for Health, Dr. Paisen Dakulala, has said that the Australian government may assist PNG along with other Pacific Island students out of Wuhan City. Currently, there are 21 PNG students in Wuhan City who have been seeking PNG government response to the possibility of them being evacuated. EMTV has been told that the students have been directed to not speak to PNG media, and we're unable to confirm if they're aware of evacuation plans in place.
Australians have made an undertaking to see how they can initiate that process with their citizens, and they've extended these to the Pacific Islanders, including PNG. And so that discussion continues on with them as we go through that process, especially from that particular setting, Wuhan, where it's happened. But that discussion is with the key stakeholders, like I said, DFAT, with us, as well as the Foreign Affairs. And so we get the right information and right process to get that through. From what I know, the reports that have come in, the indications are China is already managing. And as you heard from our WR, China is already on track. The management of this epidemic or this outbreak in China is first class. It's already done well. It's not so much them, but it's what's outside that we have to step up and deal with that right now as we speak. And so they're managing, and the indications that I get or that we get is that our students and our citizens that are in China right now, they've been cared for and they are being protected, if you like, with the necessary support that's been given. And our own Foreign Affairs are linking up with each one of those citizens and students that are there.
The National Department of Health, working closely together with the National Airport Corporation, is urgently installing stringent health measures for the high-risk coronavirus should a case be detected on any international flights coming into the country. The media was given a walk through these primary screening measures earlier this afternoon at the Arrivals Lounge at the Jacksons International Airport.
With a clear indication that there was a health help desk response team on location at the Jacksons International Airport, rigorous health measures are still being demanded from the National Department of Health to have proper checks and vital equipment in place to detect the virus at the airport checkpoints.
The only thing that we can get a case is from outside. So as I said earlier on, is containment at the moment, screening, and what else we're doing at the airport. That's number one. Number two, all our virus settings, including the airports, all have been PP'd. All our staff and NUGINI and National Airports Corporation. That's the instructions that we gave them last week, and they are following it. We are working with them to make sure that we also support them with whatever requirements from us, including masks and all the other things that they require.
The media was able to observe a flight that had just come in from Honiara, Solomon Islands earlier this afternoon. After disembarking the flight, passengers were maneuvered towards the health staff stationed at the arrivals gate to fill out a health declaration form before they were allowed to pass through to immigration. It is understood that when and if there is a detection deemed positive upon arrival on an international flight, due process for further checks are set to take place that will see to the affected being taken to an isolation sick bay before being transported to the Port Moresby General Hospital for a more secluded isolation.
The thing that we need to understand for now is containment. We need to protect our ports of entry, which we are currently doing, and the most important thing also is we need to be prepared. So for us, in terms of the clinical part, in terms of the hospitals and ambulance, we are all set. We're going to ramp up as and when there are cases, but for the moment we are under containment level. And we have all the health workers that we are planning to recruit on board. We have some already on board, we have some on standby, and the doctors also. So we are just making do with what we currently have in the system, and then when the situation changes, we're going to adapt accordingly.
Speaking to the media, Acting Health Secretary Dr. Paisen Dakulala says the department is doing everything within its means to give its utmost attention to the detection of the virus at the airport with the help of the ground staff and the airline companies.
Those who are part of the airlines, there's part who are the airport authorities, there's part who are part of the ports, there's the customs, And there's a whole lot of team that are coming on board in the whole response. There's the St. John's ambulance in the emergency. There's the clinicians at the Port Moresby General Hospital. So a whole core team, and I must say that it's quite a big team of.
Making it also known in a conference earlier today that the department has submitted its proposal for the estimated cost of the vital equipment it needs to the National Executive Council pending approval, reassuring that this would be made available within the next couple of weeks.
We will hope to get in the thermal, screening, processes. We hope to get more of the PPE. That's the right attire to wear and then do the screen that way. And then when we get into the more complicated settings, then that's also going to have a lot of costings in terms of, in case those who come in who are sick, how do we manage them? That's a cost also. So we will have to be looking at all of those. But it's depending on what we faced with. And so far, as you already know, and we keep on saying, there are no cases at the moment declared or identified.
Annette Cora, National EMTV News.
New Zealand has its first suspected case of coronavirus, and it comes as the World Health Organization declared a global health emergency. The death toll now stands at 213, but more than 9,000 cases are being reported in countries across the world.
On alert worldwide, and according to the World Health Organization, it's necessary.
Our greatest concern is the potential for the virus to spread to countries with weaker health systems and which are ill prepared to deal with it.
It comes as New Zealand has its first suspected case.
We have one person in Auckland who is the closest to fitting a suspected case definition, and testing has been sent off. We won't have the results of that testing till tomorrow.
That testing now able to happen onshore.
We followed the methodology and the protocols from the tests designed overseas. So it's a very specific and robust test.
Out of almost 10,000 cases of the virus, 98 are in 22 countries outside of mainland China. 4 countries, Germany, Vietnam, the US and Japan, have cases of human-to-human transmission.
We're all in this together, and we can only stop it together.
The situation constantly evolving. Russia ramping up its response, closing its Far East border. With less demand, Air New Zealand cutting back on its Shanghai flights. It comes as the evacuation for the 174 Kiwis in Wuhan looks set to happen in a matter of days.
Good progress is being made, both with the logistics around a flight going into Wuhan, but also the way from a public health perspective we manage those who are returning to make sure that we protect the health of our population in New Zealand.
Health staff will be going over and screening people getting on the flight to ensure that they are fit to fly.
Kiwis in the wider Hubei province concerned they can't make the flight due to the lockdowns.
My wife and daughter have been here for a few months, and I just come over to pick them up to go back to New Zealand, and I'm stuck here for the time being.
At Kristen School in Auckland, close to 140 students and 1 staff member are in self-isolation after travelling to China. One News understands other schools in the region have similar numbers delaying the start of their school year. Despite the rising number of cases globally, some reassurance from officials.
Its level of contagiousness is not terribly high. It's nowhere near as high as something like measles.
And some critical words of encouragement. If you're feeling symptomatic, come forward.
All right, let's go now to Laura James, who's outside Auckland Hospital. Laura, what do we know about this person who has suspected coronavirus?
Well, we'll know tomorrow if this person does in fact have the coronavirus when the test results for them come back. We don't know where this person is from or anything about them, but officials say they are here at Auckland Hospital and the situation is being managed appropriately. We're told an infectious disease case is usually put in a special isolation room, possibly something like what you'll be seeing in these pictures now. It's said to have negative pressure ventilation, which stops the virus being carried out into the air. and the staff looking after such a person would have strict personal protection requirements to follow. Now, if this case is confirmed, the Public Health Unit will be involved in tracing any contact that this person has had. It's these clear processes that officials hope people will trust in, saying that Kiwis should feel comfortable coming forward should they feel symptomatic, and emphasising there is no shame or blame. Officials also reminding people that the fatality rate for this infection is below 3%.
Scientists in San Diego say they're developing a vaccine for the coronavirus faster than ever. This will need the use of technology and global cooperation. But being able to administer the vaccine en masse is still months away.
We are on day 21.
They may be more than 10,000 miles away from the centre of the outbreak, but these scientists are in emergency mode.
Do we know what the mortality rate is?
They are working day and night to come up with a vaccine that could save lives in China and beyond. Scientists were able to spring into action within just a couple of days of the new virus being identified after China posted details of the virus's genetic code online.
We received the sequence from the Chinese government and we worked overnight, and the next day we had designed a vaccine. We immediately put that vaccine into manufacture, which is the stage that it's currently in, and we hope that that will be entering into human clinical trials by early summer. That timeline is absolutely unprecedented in vaccine development.
Swirling around in these fermenters is a very musty smelling solution of bacteria from which the main ingredient for this vaccine, a string of DNA, which it's hoped will trigger a strong immune response against this virus, will be extracted. Traditionally, this process can take months, but here, using these new technologies, it's been taking scientists days. The work here and in 2 other research facilities in the US and Australia is being funded by an organisation called CEPI. It's a coalition of governments and philanthropic organisations that invest in developing new vaccines for emerging diseases as quickly as possible.
Doing this is exciting work, but this is a very dangerous time. This is a real viral threat. And we know these viruses, they do not respect borders. So this virus could be on our doorstep very quickly.
This is National EMTV News. A dedication service for public servants, families of ex-servicemen evicted, and medicine shortage continues in 2020. Those stories and more after the break. Welcome back. Over 500 public servants gathered this morning for a dedication service. Speaking at the service, Prime Minister James Marape urged public servants to be honest in their line of duty. He said public servants play a vital role in implementing government policies and improving service delivery. The 2020 Public Service Work Plan was also launched by the Prime Minister.
It comes at this time of the year where government agencies gather for a dedication service. This morning's service was attended by over 500 public servants in Port Moresby, including heads of departments and agencies, members of parliament, secretaries, ministers and Prime Minister James Marape. PM Marape wants to see improvements in the public service workforce in handling government business.
Statistics compel us. Morality compel us. We here consume 50% of whatever resources that is found in our country, are money that can be equally spent educating one more child, giving health care to one more dying patient, building a new kilometer road somewhere that is where coffee is, or cocoa is, or copra is.
Public servants eat up nearly 40% of the state's revenue. With aging and realignment of public workforce a concern, Minister responsible wants to see changes. He says the government will make changes to adapt to better service delivery structure.
First, there is the need to rekindle efficiency and effectiveness in public service. The Department of Personal Management has come up with ways to enhance improvement in these areas. Second, there is a need to recruit a new team of public servants. but for them to be immediately stationed in provincial headquarters and district offices.
Chief Secretary to Government Isaac Lupari urged public servants to work within their responsible areas of duty. The Chief Secretary says it is time agencies of government work together for the people.
By working together in physical being and spiritual being, with all this blessing, we can translate this country, a country that we can all be proud.
The 2020 Public Service Work Plan was also launched by Prime Minister James Marape. Jack Lapava Jr., National EMTV News.
Widowed wives and dependents of PNGDF ex-servicemen took to the streets this morning to air their grievances. They are refusing to move out of the institutional housing property they are currently residing in. They claim the order for eviction came at short notice. A handful of mothers, wives and dependents of retrenched ex-servicemen gathered outside the Murray Barracks gate following eviction notices served on them yesterday. According to them, most have not been paid their full entitlements and have been waiting for over 10 to 15 years.
Now at Murray Barracks, we are facing Miplogera dependents, we are facing hardship. Miplogera go through a mass eviction taking place in the barracks, where all the families have been thrown out on the street. Many families have been given 24 hours to vacate their houses, some even less than a week without a penny. This is now affecting Mipla because all entitlements for Mipla. Mipla no kisim, or daddy Mipla no kisim, and they're throwing them out on the street. Some people die pennies. We have widows now currently leaving the house. Some people evicting all pennies.
Senior staff at 4 major hospitals in the Highlands region say the shortages of drugs and medical supplies are far worse than publicly stated. While much of the focus has been on the shortage of medicines, there is a critical shortage of medical equipment and consumables. Over the course of the week, EMTV will be bringing you details of that lingering problem that remains largely unaddressed by the Health Department. Scott White with this report from the Eastern Highlands.
The Goroka General is one of the biggest referral hospitals in the Highlands. The demands on its staff and facilities make it one of the busiest in the region. And you don't have to go far to see that the same medicine shortages confronting smaller health centers in the country is also having a negative impact on this hospital's operation.
When I'm doing the orders, I order what I need and the quantity that I need for a month.
Seba Korape, the hospital pharmacist, is the man who orders the medicines, and he says they don't get everything they ask for.
Every month I'm getting less than 40 to 50% of the items.
In a meeting with senior health staff and the acting chief executive, Dr. Max Manape, the problem is articulated further.
All the issues with all the specialists, and the specialists, they need drugs, they need medical consumables to work on. And we are under pressure, really pressure to ensure that these drugs are available for our specialist medical doctors to really, provide that care to the patients.
The medicines arrive late. The area medical stores don't have the required drugs when orders are placed every month. And they also said the hospital hasn't been supplied basic equipment for several years. For 3 years, the hospital administration has plugged the shortfalls by taking money from its project budget and paying for drugs.
The amount of money that we spent in 2018 totaled up to 765,000 kina in terms of purchasing medical supplies. And that is the money that is unbudgeted for in our operational situations. And as a responsible management, that was presented to our SCM, and we through Dr. Manape, we sent to the department asking if the pharmaceutical company can reimburse this amount of money. At least we must get something back, because that's their responsibility.
None of that money has been reimbursed. The Goroka Hospital is also catering for the large numbers of patients coming in from districts because their district hospitals have run out of medicines. This is a crisis that has not yet been addressed, despite the ongoing public accounts investigation. Scott White, National EMTV News.
There is a great need for more Papua New Guineans to become specialist doctors and surgeons. This was identified by parents of children who were born with physical disorders who have been searching everywhere for specialist doctors to treat their children. Thanks to the volunteers from the Australian Interplast team who have always visited PNG on a mission to repair bodies and rebuild lives for free.
This is little Stalon Ben from Juwaka province, just days after his surgery led by the Australian Interplast team at Mount Hagen General Hospital. A team of 6, 2 nurses, 2 anaesthetists and 2 surgeons, one specialized on body burns and another on cleft palates or deformations in the mouth, arrived on Monday to conduct 2 weeks of reconstructive surgeries on patients, especially children.
We've been coming to Papua New Guinea for almost 30 years now, different groups and different teams. Initially we went to Port Moresby back in the late 80s and 90s, but now go further to Lae, Madang, Rabaul and here in Mount Hagen.
Stalon's parents have been in and out of hospitals in Juwaka, Lae, Madang and finally Mount Hagen for almost a year for a specialist surgeon to conduct reconstructive surgery to Stalon's lip. But all they could get was hospital bills of at least 1,000 kina to conduct such surgeries and then added cost of transportation, accommodation and food. His mother, Monica, was relieved when she received a call from Mount Hagen Hospital that the operation was free and her son would at least receive a repair of a lifetime. Monica thanked the continued support of Interplast Australia and its volunteers who gave their heart to the operation, giving smiles to the children and their parents. She also called on the government to create scholarships for medical doctors to go for further studies and become specialist doctors to help our growing population.
Thank you.
The Interplast team are working side by side with local nurses, surgeons, physiotherapists and medical officers to exchange knowledge and train the local staff.
They're very awful injuries or diseases to have and can very influence greatly the patient's life and education and success and health. And it's important to identify the problem early, treat it safely and properly in a hospital life.
Interplast sends out volunteers who are mostly surgeons and other specialist doctors to Asia-Pacific regions to provide plastic and reconstructive surgeries, as well as building the capacity of local medical systems through their training and mentoring. Vasinata Yama, National EMTV News, Mount Hagen.
National EMTV News continues with more after these messages. Stay with us. Welcome back to the news. The Australian bushfire appeal in Lae is continuing and more people are being urged to give towards the cause. Treasurer of the appeal committee Jane Kenny emphasised that Morbe province has been a major recipient of Australian aid in the health services and this is an opportunity to give back. So far over 30,000 kina has been raised. This week Papindo Group of companies came on board.
Organization and we are very happy to ask to provide a supermarket to put in this donation box to raise some money for this issue.
With this added 10,000, it boosts the bank account a little bit more. So we continue to appeal to the Morbe people, come and support, because Morbe alone in health has received over 500 million in health services, and that doesn't include the other services that the Australian government have supported. And these are people who have paid tax to Australia for us to receive those funding, so we can in turn give a little bit back from our heart.
And turning overseas now, Britain's less than 24 hours away from officially leaving the European Union and on the eve of an uncertain future. It's gained a symbolic but significant boost from its own ally, America. As One News reports, not everyone's celebrating.
Brexit Eve and US President Donald Trump's chief diplomat arrives at number 10, vowing to prioritise Britain for a post-Brexit trade deal.
We intend to put the United Kingdom at the front of the line. This is a historic relationship between our two countries.
The US Secretary of State reinforcing the future of the UK-US special relationship.
I wanted to be here today to be the starting gun, not only in the trade negotiations, but on all of the other files that our two countries work on together.
Timely tonic for Prime Minister Boris Johnson. It's Brexit D-Day, with preparations underway to mark the UK's divorce from the EU. An hour before the UK is due to leave the bloc, Boris Johnson will deliver an address to the nation. All government buildings in Whitehall will be lit up in blue, red and white, while the Union Jack will be flown across all flagpoles in Pall Mall and here in Parliament Square. Outside Parliament, one of Britain's chief anti-Brexit battlers reflecting on the long struggle.
I've been here for 2.5 years. Every day that Parliament's sitting, our campaign here was to stop Brexit. So now the message on the hat has changed. It's why Brexit. It's a question they can't answer.
Steve Bray's gained fame for shouting through his megaphone. But he, like so many others, now submitted to defeat.
Look, I'm already sad. I've already said my goodbyes. So tomorrow I'm just going out for a meal with my girlfriend.
And the mood was mixed in central London.
I'm Spanish. I'm a bit sad that the UK is leaving the European Union after so many years.
Personally, I feel sad, and I think that a lot of people in London, we're that way.
I think it makes sense to try and move on from it and figure out the best trading relationship with Europe going forward.
Not just with Europe, but globally too.
Up next, some sporting updates in Chukai Sports. Stay tuned.
Chukai Sports.
Welcome to Chukai Sport. The SPPNG Hunters have a new recruit to their team who has the height and will prove to be an asset in the forwards. He is Stephen Bruno. The SPPNG Hunters' new forward recruited for the 2020 season is the younger brother of Joe Bruno, a current Hunters player.
Stephen Bruno, SPPNG Hunters' new recruit, will be a huge boost for the Hunters forward pack with his height and weight. The Hunters will need him as they look to bring home the prize trophy for this season. Although Bruno looks like an experienced rugby league player at first sight, he only had interest for the sport in 2019 when the Kimber Cutters franchise from West New Britain made their debut, and he has since earned a place in the Hunters.
Rugby means interest to me, so play so high. Na kata so now I can play rugby. I start 2018 so I start play rugby. Me play go I come lantas. Me play lo katas bien me come lantas.
Stephen is younger brother to former Kumul Hunters player and current trainer to the Hunters, Joe Bruno. They're almost identical. Joe was the one who encouraged Stephen to play rugby league.
Some interest lo play rugby come up now. Me look big lo me to play na me to alare no at to play. I play.
For Stephen, he is coping with training and is certain he will make an impact this season.
Stay me play mato kada. Now I'm play more right now. I'm no more now.
What is something you've been hard through then you come some?
Some look more training I'm ato kada.
You like give up or not?
Me like give up so I'm not strong in the stop.
Fleli Sukina National, EMTV Sports.
Meanwhile, the Hunters are closing in on their 2020 trial match to take place next month. Coach Matthew Church is still working out a clear combination of players to make up the team for the trial match.
It's getting close to the start of the 2020 season for the SPPNG Hunters, And coach Matthew Church is leading the Hunters into a new game plan, away from what the team has been used to, especially in making it past the advantage line, something that the Hunters were not doing well on a regular basis.
So looking back on some of the footage and obviously coaching against them, I had a fair understanding of the way that they played. They played very deep, so they passed the ball back, and they, almost on a 45-degree angle from the play the ball. So a lot of the game now is played on the front foot and about playing over the advantage line. And if we're going to have someone do the hard yards and gain 10 metres for us, then why would we steal 5 metres off him by passing it so far back?
At the moment, though, all the players are being closely monitored by the coach before the team's first trial match next month.
Yeah, just working around combinations. Just everyone's going to get pretty much get a game in the first trial while we're here. We'll obviously narrow that down to probably around 20 when we go to Cairns. You get into a bit of trouble if you start picking 17s now, and with so many weeks away, that could look totally different. It's a collision sport. There's injuries, so.
Church says he has not come up with a definite 20-man squad, but will monitor progress and finalize a team depending on availability of players and their fitness level.
It's kind of a double-edged sword if you go down that route and try and pick 17 and hope that they're all going to be fit by the time round one rolls around. Also, with that, I didn't want to be locked into a mindset that they're my best 17. I want to give everyone opportunity. Especially with that first trial, try and even out the times as much as possible so everyone can put their best foot forward, and then we can make decisions on how we narrow that down to 20.
Frele Sukina National, EMTV Sports.
Trukai Sports continues with more stories after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. To tennis, and Novak Djokovic has taken another step in his relentless march towards a record 8 Australian Open title, brushing aside one of his rivals, Roger Federer, but it wasn't without an early scare in their 50th career meeting.
Coming off the back of 2 draining 5-setters and nursing a groin injury, how would Roger Federer keep up with the devastating Djokovic? Well, just fine it seemed.
Oh, that is absolutely unbelievable.
5-2 up in the first set before Djokovic switched gears.
Oh, incredible. The skill level of that shot is at the top of the tree.
Federer's never retired in a match in his more than 20 years on tour. Despite a medical timeout, there were glimpses of quality.
Stunning net play.
But the world number 2 could smell blood and went for the jugular. His 6th Grand Slam win in a row against Federer.
I just want to say respect to Roger for coming out tonight. He was obviously hurt.
Today was horrible, to go through what I did. Nice entrance, nice send-off, and in between, it's one to forget.
A chance now for Djokovic to make Sunday another one to remember, as he aims to maintain his perfect record in finals here and claim Australian Open title number 8.
Brothers and sisters trading similar sports isn't unheard of, but this next story takes it to a new level. Give these 3 siblings, all doctors, 2 competing in canoe racing at the Rio Olympics, and soon the 3rd will be an Olympian as well.
Jane Nicholas might not be a name you recognise, but in the Cook Islands.
Go to the weekend market and people will congratulate me on the street for qualifying for the games and, tell me good luck.
When it comes to canoe slalom, the 27-year-old's the latest in just her family to do the Cook Islands proud. She'll make her Olympic debut in Tokyo this year, following in the footsteps of her older brother and sister who competed in Rio.
They're very supportive of me and have been my kind of career-long training buddies. Oh, I'm sure she'll do great. I watched her race in Mangahao last weekend and her World Championship race in Spain, and both of them were beautiful.
Making the New Zealand-born trio even more remarkable, away from the water, all 3 are doctors.
Generally, the comment you get is, oh, your parents must be so proud, which I'm sure they are, but really it stems from them.
Motivated by the older generation, they're also hoping to inspire a younger one. Ella's even set up a scholarship fund to support Kiwi and Pacific slalom athletes.
I just had so much support throughout my career and I wanted to give back in some way.
They know what it means to be among just a handful of athletes to compete for the Cook Islands on sport's biggest stage.
To have that country behind you, they're so small, it's actually really special, and yeah, I feel very proud to represent them.
And while the medical career's on hold until after Tokyo, she'll be back from racing on rapids to joining her siblings saving lives soon enough.
And that ends Chukai Sports. The weather details coming up next.
Chukai Sports. Chukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
A look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in the southern region. Cloudy with light showers in Port Moresby, cloudy with a few showers in Daru and Popondetta, a shower or two in Kerma, and rain showers in Alata. In the Momasa region, partly cloudy with a shower or two in Lae, cloudy with a few showers in Medang, Wewak and Vanimo. In the New Guinea Islands region, mostly fine, although cloudy at times in Lorengau and Kavieng, rain showers in Kokaporabal and Kimbe, and rain showers with possible thunderstorms in Buka. And in the Highlands region, rain showers right across the region in Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabag. There is a renewal strong wind warning for all coastal waters. Strong southwest to northwest winds of 22 to 32 knots are expected to seize within the next 24 hours, causing rough seas. All small crafts and boats are advised to take necessary precautions before and after going out to sea. Forecast for small crafts for the next 24 hours. Waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait and Daru, Kiwai Island, Kerama, Yule Island to Hood Point, Arama Coast to Samarai Island, including waters of Finch Hafen through Vitiaz and Dampier Straits to Siasi Islands, Long Island, and with waters of Long Island to Karkar Island, Medang, Bogia, Wewak, Aitape to Vanimo, northern PNG and Indonesian border, seas of 0.5 to 1.5 meters. Waters of eastern and western Milne Islands with waters of Samarai Island to Cape Vogel to Finch Hafen, including waters of New Ireland, West New Britain and Bougainville, seas of 1.5 to 2 meters. Waters of Manus and its western group of islands, seas of 0.5 to 1 meter. A look at the ocean forecast for PNG areas in the Coral Sea. Seas slight with southwest to northwest winds at 10 to 15 knots. In the Solomon Sea, seas moderate to rough with south to southwesterly winds at 15 to 20 knots, increasing to 24 knots. In the Bismarck Sea, seas slight to moderate with northwesterly winds at 10 to 15 knots. And in the Pacific Ocean, seas slight to moderate with southwest to northwest winds at 10 to 15 knots.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
And that's the way it is this Friday, the 31st of January. On behalf of the news team, pleasant viewing. Good night.